little bit about your beloved dog, Bruschetta, who you write about with real sort of emotional openness and love, and a little bit about that death and that bit of your book?
Well, I think what I would preface the response to your questions by saying that we have to really stop telling people when they lose a dog that that you'll get another dog. I think that I know we already know that it's insensitive, but it has to be said over and over again. You cannot just get another dog. You cannot just have a friendship that you've had with one dog and you cannot replicate it with another dog. So we really need to stop saying that to people who lose their pets. It could be an iguana, it could be a cat, it could be a dog, it could be whatever. It's a very specific and particular relationship, and certainly for me it was with Bruschetta, because she was the first dog I lived with who had a really great sense of humor and a sense of self, because if I was castigating, if I was scolding her about something, she would narrow her eyes, look at me like I was an absolute bore, which I was being, and she would just walk away. So her sense of personhood, her sense of dignity was so tremendous that, how could you not honor that with an essay in loss? But also for all the things that she taught me, in her 9.5 years. What a great delight she was, how she made me feel alive. I remember when I would come back from Goa to Bombay, where she lived with my father, she would almost, in fact, pee from delight. She would urinate. And I would think to myself, oh my God, this is such an extraordinary thing that there is somebody who feels this much delight that they're incontinent in your company. And that I would never have that with anyone else, thank God. But that she would honor me, that she would put herself in this incredibly vulnerable, whining moment of joy for herself. What a privilege. She was really an original. And as I'm sure if you've had dogs, you know that there are some who have a precedence over others in their sense of self and their sense of humor. And really, Bruschetta had, a great sense of humor, the way that she would steal things, hide them, appropriate things, the way that she would look at you, the askance glance, the sort of slightly scolding look, almost to berate you, for the fact that you're human, which somehow seemed to her a lesser identity to occupy with. And she was quite right to think so. But she was also such great fun, and that's what I miss. I think that we really miss the people and the pets with whom we have a lot of fun with. We understate this sort of slightly frivolous quality of being delirious with joy in the company of another person. I felt that often with my mother, and almost always with Bruschetta. So with her passing, I know that if I ever go back to Bombay, nobody will be that triumphantly joyous as she used to be when I walked into a room. And for no good reason. I never.
Yeah, no, but it's beautiful, and I think you talk about your intimacy, and you really get her character through, and also the way she also sort of humanized or brought out this very sweet side of your father, and I was really struck by the line, for all the ways that they humanize us, commit a service that borders on alchemy. In terms of losing. You don't just lose the person or the dog, but you lose a version of yourself. They also give back this adoring look. So it's losing that version of yourself as well. And the kind of intimacy. Again, in the book, you talk a little bit about your own sort of difficulty with intimacy. Yet with, your beloved dog, there's this whisperable distance, this contact that actually is quite delightful. And maybe doesn't have human awkwardness, Well,
but also, what I felt that she did was to reveal my father to me for his tenderness, because he was such a large personality, he really could fill a room. And yet around Bruschetta, he was just this gentle giant. He would kind of just fall to his haunches to kind of tickle this little dachshund on her back, on her brisket. And you could see that, oh my God, that my father all along had been this, softy, and how did I miss that? And what is it that I was not doing to be able to see that in the way that, Bruschetta was revealing before me? And perhaps that was her role in our life, was to allow me to see my father for how fragile he was and how given to affection he could be. So for that service, she really bridged a tremendous gap in my understanding of my father by showing me how capable of love he was, because he had been like that with her.
That's beautifully put. It felt like with her death that was in some ways the most anxiety making for you. It felt like, because you had to make a choice, she was really suffering, she was dying, and you had to kind of take her to the vet and make that choice for her. That really haunted you initially, and that was hard to process. Is that right?
Yes, it is. And there was a lot of guilt until I went and saw my friend Alan, who lives at an ashram, 2 hours outside of Pune. And somehow a conversation with him allowed me to revisit the whole incident with Bruschetta and taking her to the vet and allowing for her to be put down, or taking the decision to be put down, something which racked me with guilt. And one of the things he said was that there's really no spiritual benefit for animals to suffer in the way that there can possibly be for human beings, in so much as pain can be transformative, and pain can be an education for so many people, including myself. But that is not a service available to our pets. And also, it was just, now when I look at it practically, the fact that she couldn't breathe. She had lung cancer. So there wasn't really very much to kind of turn around and say, either you're just going to let her wheeze to her death, gasping for air, or you're going to actually take her. But I will say that, what had happened, if I can just put it into context, is that the day before she died, I had just launched I had just read from The Rabbit and the Squirrel at the NCPA in Bombay. It was, very well attended. It was a beautiful dinner. And then the next morning, she kind of met me outside my room, and she was gasping. And it was as if she was saying to me that, okay, time's up. But even within that, I recognized the grace that she had somehow pulled through, because after she passed away, I canceled every single book event, every single reading. And I know that if she had passed on before, I would not even have gone through with the original event of reading from Rabbit and Squirrel, however insignificant that may sound. I wouldn't have done it. But the fact that she mustered all this energy, the strength, the spiritual force to sort of say, look, I'm going to stick around until, you kind of do it. And then the immediacy, the fact that she passed away 12 hours after, you could think of it as a coincidence, but I like to think of it as the grace of dogs, and the grace that only dogs are capable of.